So here we go. So welcome everyone to Amazingly True Tales, the Grant Library's 5th annual Story Slam. I'm Paige Battle, the librarian here at Grant, and I want to thank our students and the other students who are here in the audience, judges, teachers who came to support their students, and all of you audience members for coming out tonight to support and celebrate storytelling. Storytelling is an art form that I feel is the perfect avenue for creating an empathetic understanding of people and events and strengthening our relationships with one another. So Amazingly True Tales is a live storytelling competition. In 2015, Grant was lucky enough to be selected by Literary Arts to host a moth story hour. Anybody in the audience remember that? Who was here for that? Pardis and Jennifer. So we had moth master instructors and professional storytellers work with 8 of our students, teaching them the structures and strategies for telling short form personal stories on stage. So Jennifer Sochawa, my incomparable library assistant who helps keep everything running. She and I had so much fun hosting that event that we decided we needed to put on an annual Story Slam in the vein of the live events that the Moth hosts. So if you haven't been to a Moth story hour before, I'm going to quickly tell you what are the rules of a Story Slam. So our storytellers, the slammers, have 5 minutes each to tell a real and true story about something that has happened in their life, and it's always based on a theme. So this year's theme is hindsight, because we have reached the year 2020. We thought that was pretty cute. So at the 5-minute mark, if we get to 5 minutes, storytellers, you will hear a gentle note from our very talented student musician, Ben Price. Let's hear that note, Ben. Oh, very nice, gentle note. If you hear that delightful trill, that's your cue to wrap things up, okay? You're going to get a 1-minute grace period before Ben blows the sound of alarm. Okay. Yes, that is about as bad as the alarm that sounds for the forum. Okay. We love you, Ben, but we do not want to hear any more music from you tonight if we can help it, okay? If you go over time and you hear that alarming note, 1 full point is going to be deducted from the total score. Yeah. All right, so speaking of points, after each story, tonight's judges, who I will be introducing throughout the evening, have the unenviable responsibility of assigning scores to each performance. While the point isn't the point, right? The storytelling is. This is a competition, and in order to determine who will represent Grant at next week's Interscholastic Story Slam, we have to find a way to get a winner and a runner-up. Okay, so before we begin with tonight's first story, I want everyone to look at their electronic device and silence that device. As I say that, I'm questioning. Oh, see, she does everything for me. Miss Sochawa, put my phone away because I don't think I had silenced my electronic device. Okay, so while the students' names are listed in alphabetical order on your program, the order that they will be coming up to the mic was predetermined yesterday by the roll of a die. So as I call each storyteller to the mic, I thought a fun thing to do would be to share with you a little anecdote about them. So tomorrow is Valentine's Day. Tomorrow is also the birthday of Oregon. And so we thought about times in our lives when we had been gifted with some really awesome presents. So when I asked this next storyteller, who was slightly dismayed to have rolled a 1, what was the best present that they had ever received, this student said, a pair of weightlifting shoes, because it was a big investment in her sport that she loves so much. Or does she? So please welcome to the mic, Jordan Dimoff.
I was a weird kid. I was the kid who played in the mud and tried to play with the boys on my block. They didn't want to play with me, so only child goals. And I loved sports. I liked playing basketball and badminton. And so when my counselor said there was a thing called advanced PE, I couldn't resist but sign up for it as an 8th grader. And so I signed up for it, learning it was actually called cross training, which terrified me. For a number of reasons, I thought I was signing up for cross country, a long distance running sport where probably my parents would have been delighted since most of them did run cross country, but I have athletic asthma and I'd rather not. So it is the first day of school. I'm a nice spunky freshman and we're going through our classes and I eventually get to cross training, which would eventually turn into CrossFit, which was a weightlifting and fitness education class, which I hated. I did not like it one bit because the last thing I wanted to do was spend the 90 minutes of my class time to be doing a WOD called Karen. It's a workout where you throw a giant ball at the ceiling and hopefully catch it on the way down. You do that for 10 minutes and your legs are jelly later. I proceed to take this class reluctantly. I am a freshman, so I have to take it. It is a PE credit. But after this year, I probably won't, since I don't like it. I don't have any friends in the class. I have a few, but it's not something I enjoy. It's a training, since I do other sports. Now, the semester comes around and we're doing finals, we're stressing. Luckily, CrossFit trained me for that, not physically, but emotionally. And I went into the CrossFit room. KG, who was our coach, was writing on the board, writing down our workouts, writing what we were supposed to do, probably some marathon, I don't know what we do anymore in that class. And I see on the board a CrossFit competition. Now, why would you compete against other people for strength? Why? That doesn't seem like a sport. It doesn't seem like something you would do for a job, for fun, because you're just weightlifting. And so, reluctantly, I ask her, what is it about and what's it like to do a CrossFit competition? And she told me it's really fun, it's a great community, it's against a school that she worked at where they've been doing it for at least 15 years. So they were good. While our school has only been doing it for 2 years at this point. And so I said, sure, I'll try it. I'll try anything once, at least if I have fun. And so she said, as long as you get a partner, you're signed up. It's free for students. So I go to my one friend in the class. She has been with me through this entire process of weightlifting and running, and she supported me all the way. And I asked her if she wanted to do this competition, and she told me, hell no. And so I was disappointed, not really because I didn't want to do it either. So I lived my life. I had a dentist appointment coming up. I've been pushing off for quite a few weeks. I had a cavity coming in that I needed to get filled, but it wasn't my top priorities. I had to finish the finals first. And so a few weeks passed. The dentist appointment is the next day, and I go down into the weight room. We're working out, and KG tells me she found me a partner. And now I am even more terrified than I was my freshman year in the beginning. And so I said, hey, I can't do that. I got a dentist appointment tomorrow. I have a filling, I gotta fill it. And she's like, no, I already signed you up. So I reluctantly leave class early on the next day, canceled my dentist appointment to go to this competition where I had the time of my life. I was laughing with my partner. She was a freshman too. This was her first year of weightlifting, and we were having fun. We were losing. I think we got dead last, but we were having fun, learning more about this community that neither of us knew, and this was the first time we ever did something like this, where it was a big connection of the sport. Because when I thought about weightlifting as a sport, I thought it would just be egos and hardcore people trying to beat the others, which it wasn't. People were cheering each other on, and everyone was supporting each other. It didn't matter if you won or lose. It was just a lovely community. And in hindsight, I probably would never have found this community that I use as a mental health resource and coping mechanism, and found out that I want to be a collegiate CrossFit athlete when I grow up. Thank you.
So I just want to give a shout out. She mentioned KG. KG is Kendra Gardner. She is a teacher here, and I said to Jordan, you don't know what that is like to, as a teacher, oh, now I'm going to get emotional. When a student says, this thing that you pushed me to do really changed my life. So kudos to our colleague, Kendra Gardner, and so happy that that's something that you want to do down the road, Jordan. Okay, so while our judges are crunching their numbers, I'm going to tell you a little bit about our judge, Jen Batchelor. So I know in your program you can read a little bio about her, but I asked the judges as well as the storytellers if they could share something that they received that brought them a lot of joy. And Jen said that it was a 1989 Volvo 240 GL that was silver and came with the name Fiona, at which point I clutched my heart. I too have named my cars. I have Henrietta, my Honda Pilot, and today I drove Wanda, my Vanagon. So, however, Fiona was only in Jen's life for 7 or 8 months. Just yesterday, she gifted Fiona to a man named Steve. Now get this. She tells Steve that this Volvo he is getting comes with the name Fiona, at which point he clutches his heart and says, Fiona was the name of my beloved Basset Hound. Yeah. Love it. Some other people who are here helping us out at the Slam, we have math genius Pardis Navi. She is a retired math teacher here from Grant. Thank you for being here, Pardis. We have our timekeeper who's given the nudge to Ben. Her name is Stephanie DeCruz, and she teaches English here at Grant. We have an official photographer, Eli Fahrenkopf Ben. Eli, I hope I got your last name. Perfect. Eli's taking pictures for the yearbook, which I'm just going to give a little shout out to the work that y'all do. Now, I have children. I have to whisper this. They go to Franklin. The Franklin yearbook is not as good as the Grant yearbook. Y'all do really excellent work. So if you haven't bought your copy yet, you need to get on that. And I'm grateful that we have our videographer here tonight, Brian, who works with PPS Multimedia Services. So thanks for being here, Brian. Okay, our next storyteller, when asked, what's the best gift you've ever gotten? She said, one time my dad and my grandma put their money together so that 2 tickets could be bought for me and my dad to go see Dear Evan Hansen. So please welcome to the stage musical-loving Kason Brown.
So my parents got divorced when I was about 10, and naturally they dated other people. And the first person that my dad ever really introduced us to, we're gonna call her Anne. She was awesome. We had amazing times. She was a special ed teacher from Vancouver, Washington, and I really loved her. Like, I think she was awesome. We had a lot of fun times together for a while. Like Christmases at her parents' house, which, oh my God, were so fun. But after about a year and a half, maybe 2 years, I'm not sure, things started to kind of become weird. She had been acting strange and sleeping in a lot, and then those brief moments when she wasn't sleeping, she had way too much energy for how long she had been sleeping. And she'd been telling us stories about things that were happening at work, but I kept noticing that every single time she would tell us the same story, there were many inconsistencies and many little details that just didn't add up. And then one night, I was in my room that I shared with my sister at the time, and I heard Anne come home late, and my dad was in the backyard. And they definitely started to argue. My dad was not happy with her about so many different things. Just also the lack of communication of when she was going to be home, and it would have been nice to have her around or have some communication so that he could plan ahead for stuff that needed to get done. And while I heard this argument, I kept checking to my sister's bed to make sure she was asleep because I didn't want her to hear any of that, because the last thing I wanted her to do was worry. And so I keep hearing the argument, and it's just the same stuff about the lack of communication and just all around she's been acting weird. And the next day, I go to talk to my dad about it, and I tell him about what I heard, and he tells me the same thing that he was telling her, and that he doesn't know how long she will be around. And for about a few months, we consistently talk about that. And I don't tell my sister anything, because I don't want her to worry, because she would not talk to me about it. She bottles up everything. And then one day, I'm in the car with my mom and my sister, and my sister's in the front seat, I'm in the back, and my mom turns down the music and tells us that Anne is in Florida, and she is in rehab because my dad found cocaine on our kitchen counter. And my sister bursts into tears. And me, trying to be strong and act like nothing affects me, I say, "Oh, I figured something like that would happen," or "that was bound to happen," or "I knew something was up." And my sister continues to cry, and I continue to hold back my tears. And then later that night, my mom and I are having a conversation in her room, and she tells me that I'm allowed to be sad too, and I can cry, and that I don't have to be strong for anyone. But I'm thinking, why? Why should I be allowed to cry? I got to know what was going on and that something was going on. I knew that there were problems, and I knew something was up, and I didn't explain any of that to my sister. So why should I be allowed to be sad? And yeah, in hindsight, I wish I just told my sister what was going on, because maybe she would have been prepared for all of that pain. And maybe I wouldn't have felt like I had to be so strong. And maybe I would have been able to express my emotions quicker than I did. Thank you.
Kason, I'll tell you, I'm the younger sister, and I always appreciated having a bigger sister who could take those burdens on. So Haven't met your younger sister yet, but hopefully she shares some of that feeling too. So, another judge on our panel is Gretchen Brooks. And I asked Gretchen, what gift have you gotten that you really enjoyed? And she was very excited to say that every year on Valentine's Day, so prepare yourself, Destiny Norwood, Gretchen is going to be renewing her Hollywood membership at the Hollywood Theater. So good job there supporting a community member. I too am a Hollywood Theater member. And I mentioned I don't renew mine until my birthday, but in case any of y'all are wondering, it's March 6th, which is a school day, so feel free to bring things to the library. But that's when I will be renewing my Hollywood membership. So one thing students especially to know about, this year's book that Multnomah County Library picked for their Everybody Reads program is There, a novel by Tommy Orange. And Literary Arts is sponsoring an evening lecture with the author. It's taking place on Thursday, March 5th at 7:30 p.m. at the Arlene Schnitzer Concert Hall. And any student who is interested in receiving and reading a free copy of the book and then attending the lecture should stop by the library to pick up a permission slip. Okay? All right, our next storyteller, when asked, what's the greatest thing you've received as a present? He said, a saxophone from his mother. And it was because he needed it to be a part of Grant's amazing jazz band, which is led by teacher Brian McFadden. So please welcome to the microphone, Danny Fisher.
It was the fall of 2018. I was sitting in a blood donation van at a local festival, watching the elixir of life slowly drain from my body, when I got the call. I used my free arm to answer and put the phone to my ear to hear the voice of my brother Fish. He said, "Danny, do you want to go shopping for lightsabers?" Later, he would explain what he had found. Not cheap Walmart lightsabers. He had found, within an hour's drive of our house, a store that specialized in the production and sale of high-end toy lightsabers. At the moment, he didn't need to explain any of this. I said, absolutely. When my donation was over, I stepped out of the van to see my girlfriend Isabella waiting for me. We had planned on spending the afternoon together. Being a bad boyfriend, I said, change of plans. Fish found a lightsaber store. And proving once again how perfect she is for me, Isabella said, seriously? Let's go. So we ran home, rounded up my parents, and we all got in the car. Me, Fish, Isabella, and my mom and dad, who really will put up with anything. On the hour's drive to the store, us kids passed the time on the company website, reading about the different models and ogling at the pretty colors they had available. And once we got in the store, me and Fish spent nearly another hour just looking around at the options, with deadly seriousness and blissful obliviousness to the irony of two high school-aged boys trying to pick the perfect toy lightsaber. Eventually, I settled on one that I thought was perfect for me. It had beautiful plastic blade construction, not sharp, and a sleek silver hilt. And my dad looks at me and he says, Danny, are you just here to look around, or are you actually going to buy this lightsaber? And so I looked at my girlfriend, my brother who had already chosen and paid for his lightsaber, and my disappointed mother. Hindsight is a funny thing. If I'd known then what I know now, I never would have bought that lightsaber. Red flags were there. The predatory look in my brother's eye, the questionable 3-star review average the store had on Yelp. But hindsight is always 20/20. Yes, I said, I will buy this lightsaber. It took some time to put our custom models together and ship them to us, but a few days later they arrived. Me and my brother examined our new possessions longingly. Mine had a light green glow like that of a Jedi with strong powers in the Force. Fish's lightsaber was a dark red, the evil color of a Sith Lord. Combat was inevitable. With utter solemnity, we decided to postpone our duel until after nightfall, reasoning that the effect of the bright lightsabers against the dark night would be cool. At night after dinner, Fish headed into the backyard first, straight through the back door, but I decided to creep around the side of the house and gain the element of surprise. I hid in the bushes and peered at him. His lightsaber was on and activated, but his back was turned and he didn't know I was there. I knew that the best strategy would be to approach silently and guarantee my advantage. So I yelled, "Ah!" and charged with all my might. He turned around with lightning-quick reflexes, blocked my first blow, and our battle had begun. He took a swing at me, and I leaned back just enough to dodge it. I struck at him, and he knocked my lightsaber out of harm's way. We blocked and parried and slashed and struck. It was everything I could have dreamed of. If I'd known then what I know now, I would not have let it get this far. If I'd known then that his lightsaber was of poor construction, that the screw holding the blade and hilt together was slowly coming undone, I would have called off the fight and gone inside. But alas, after what felt like hours, but was really less than a minute of combat, Fish took a swing at my head, but I was too quick for him, and I leaned back to dodge it. What I wasn't too quick for was the blade. The screw had come completely undone from the lightsaber, and it separated. The blade of his lightsaber came hurtling at my face like a projectile Jedi-seeking missile and hit me right in the eye. I crumpled to the ground, defeated and hurt. I couldn't see, I couldn't even feel my eye. Adrenaline is an incredible drug. But when I pulled back my hand, I saw blood. Fish was doing the classic move all brothers do when they hurt their sibling. He hovered over me, checking to see if I was okay and comforting me, but also shushing me to make sure that Mom and Dad wouldn't hear me and get mad. I decided to try to remain calm as best I could. I ran inside, clutching my eye, and I said, "Is my eye okay?" expecting comfort and reassurance in my time of struggle. My dad looked at me calmly and said, "No." My mom rushed me to the couch, laid me down, and gave me an ice pack and some Tylenol for the inevitable pain that would set in when the adrenaline wore off. It bled for a while. It hurt for a while longer, and I scared the shit out of Isabella when she saw me at school the next day. Luckily, I wasn't actually hit directly in the eye. The lightsaber hit me right above the eye, and I still have the scar. So I wasn't bleeding out of my eye, which is great. If I had known then what I know now, I never would have bought the lightsaber. Or maybe I would have. Yes, it hurt for a while, and I looked like a monster for 5 days, but out of it, I got a cool battle scar, an interesting story, and an incrementally less boring persona. Unlike hindsight, I was not 20/20 for a few days. But maybe things turned out exactly the way they were supposed to. Thank you.
Okay, audience, I'm going to tell you the teacher side of that story. Danny came to school with this black eye, and I grasped Miss Sochua's hand and said, I'm worried about Danny Fisher. I think he might have gotten into a fight. So from our side of things, we thought your whole new persona was the bad guy. But now we know it's all Fish's fault for lightsaber battle gone wrong. Okay, so Destiny Norwood, who is excited about Gretchen renewing her annual membership, said that the best gift that she has received was one from her partner. It's her dog, a mutt named Biscuit. Oh, I know. We just love him. Okay, so coming up in 3 weeks, not only is my birthday, but is also the school musical, and they are doing The Wizard of Oz, and it's happening March 4th, 5th, 6th, that's the one to remember, and 7th at 7 p.m., and there's also going to be a matinee on Saturday the 7th at 2 p.m. Okay, she's not wearing it right now, but I see it back there with her stuff. Our next storyteller said that the best gift she ever received was her orange Sherpa jacket that she got as a Hanukkah gift one year, and that she has since taken on many an adventure. So please welcome to the microphone Anna Dreyer.
So last summer I traveled to Israel as a leader in training at Ultimate Peace. Ultimate Peace is a nonprofit program that spreads the sport of ultimate frisbee and peace in the Middle East through leagues and camps, specifically 2 summer camps that last for a week. That's why I was there. I was there as like a counselor/coach at one of these camps. So I flew into Tel Aviv in the morning, and immediately I was whisked off to the coastal town of Akko in the north, where a bunch of coaches and other leaders in training were there to spend the day and a couple days before camp started. And we got there, everybody was sitting at this little like falafel store, and we were all like eating falafel. There were people from all over Israel, there were people from all different countries all around. There were about 15 of us, and it was really awesome. I had never met any of these people before except one. Her name was Arya. She was from Eugene. And this entire day it was a whirlwind. Pretty much what happened is that the Israeli LITs and coaches would make plans in Hebrew and Arabic, which are the 2 main languages spoken in Israel. And then they'd say, Yalla, which means let's go in both Hebrew and Arabic. And we just followed them off to whatever adventure they had planned. And so we ended up taking a jet boat ride around the bay, and then we ended up jumping off a 40-foot sandstone seawall into the Mediterranean. And that was incredible. And as the day was winding down, we had to go to the bus stop to take a bus back to Tamra, which is where we were staying that night with one of the coaches. And so we got to the bus stop, but in order to get there, we had to walk through the old city, which was this, the oldest part of Akko, and it was full of these winding cobblestone streets, and most of it was taken up by this covered market. And in this market, there were all different stalls selling everything from shawarma to spices to like knockoff Nikes. There were cats everywhere, and it kind of smelled like a combination of all those things. It wasn't that pleasant. We got to the bus stop, and the bus wasn't coming for a while, probably like an hour or so. So we were hanging out there, and then Arya and I, because after jumping off the cliff, we'd gotten salt water all through our noses and mouths and had been drinking water for the past like hour or so, trying to get that taste out. We had to pee. But the problem is that the public restroom was all the way back on the other side of the old city. But we had half an hour until the bus came, so no big deal. We could get there and back, right? So we got to the public restroom, we did our business, we were walking back, and then suddenly, racing around a corner come Dana and Lolo, who are 2 of our friends from Ultimate Peace. And they're like, oh my God, the bus is coming in 5 minutes. Where have you guys been? We gotta go. And if we had just taken a second and oriented ourselves, we would have realized if we had just backtracked the way that they had came, we would have been out of the market and at the bus stop in about a minute or so. However, we were panicking. So we just picked a random corridor and raced off into the market, and before long we were completely lost, completely turned around. It was getting dark, and I was wearing a backpack, and as we were sprinting around, it was just thumping against my back. We were like hurdling stray cats, and all seemed lost. And then suddenly I noticed something. I saw something I recognized from when Arya and I had walked through earlier. It was a mosaic of a pomegranate tree, and I was like, I know where we are, I can get us out. So we ran as fast as we could out of the market, and we got to the bus stop. Everybody was staring at us. And I was like, oh no, I'm about to get yelled at in 3 languages. That didn't happen, thankfully, but now we kind of had to figure out how to get to Tamra. So as it was getting dark, periodically some of the Israelis would step aside and talk on their cell phones and try to figure out where we were going to go, how we were going to get back. And meanwhile, we just tossed a frisbee around. And eventually, someone figured out they had a cousin who drove a charter bus, and that, after his cousin finished all his drives for the evening, they would come pick us up. But that wouldn't be for hours. So we settled in. Someone produced a deck of Exploding Kittens, and we played that for a while. And we just like talked. We got to know each other. And this experience, I realized what Ultimate Peace was really about at the core. It was about family. It was about sticking together. It was about supporting each other. And it was about getting through things together as a team. And as anybody who's watched Lilo and Stitch knows, family means no one gets left behind. Though through this fiasco turned adventure, I made so many friends with people across language barriers, across different cultures, across time zones. And if not for missing the bus, wouldn't have happened. Thank you.
So Anna mentioned the game Exploding Kittens, and I'll have you know, students, that is a game that you can play here in the library, because to this day, and even though Mrs. Sochawa and I both dearly love Nancy Drew and like mystery stories, we have not figured out the mystery of who has been sending us anonymous items, or they've sent them anonymously, but items from our Amazon wish list. And that was on there, and somebody sent it. So if any of y'all are wondering, what is this game that Anna's talking about, you can come check it out in the library tomorrow, because we have it available for you to play. Okay, so another one of our judges is Stephanie Sheldon. And she was gifted by an employee some sewing lessons that she currently is enjoying very much. One other thing I want to tell y'all about before the next storyteller comes up is that coming up, the Grant Boosters are hosting a trivia night, and I've already told Mrs. Sochawa she has got to go with me and be on my team. You need to gather up a team, they say, of 8 sparky people, or just come and they will be able to pair you up with other people to be on a team. But it's an evening full of banter, trivia, and camaraderie. The event supports clubs, teams, and extracurriculars at Grant. So it's happening on Saturday, April 4th at 5 p.m. at Holy Trinity Greek Orthodox Church. And you can buy tickets at grantgives.com. And shout out to the Grant Boosters, because every year for, I think, the last 6 years, they have supported our Poetry Slam, which is coming up in April. And Jordan can attest. Danny, you're wearing the shirt. What a plug. Stand up and show. The Boosters help us buy these t-shirts every year. Oh, I love it. Serendipity. Okay. I so related to this next student's favorite gift. For her 6th birthday, she was given the American Girl doll that she had been coveting, which was Molly McIntyre. And for those of y'all not well-versed, yes, I see the nods. You know what I speak of. Molly McIntyre is the American Girl from the 1940s World War II era. And this brought great joy to Ellen Lovery. Let's welcome her to the mic.
I try not to regret things. I think that the choices I make help me become a better, or at least a different person than I previously was. And so I try to not, hold on to regrets. That being said, there are a few things in my life that I wish maybe I had done a little differently. I wish I could have gone to the spring session of outdoor school last year. I wish I hadn't bought every single Sarah J. Maas book in brand new hardcover, because I spent probably close to $200 on all those books, and I'm never going to read them again. But most of all, I wish that I had been a summer camp kid. And I know that's probably not the thing I'm supposed to regret the most, but it is. And really, I kind of was one. I mean, I grew up going to different summer camps here and there, but I never really felt that feeling that all these camp people say you're supposed to feel, where it's like your second home. The first summer camp I ever went to was, how should I put this, the worst. The greatest thing that ever happened to me there wasn't that great, but I was on the cover of the Portland Parks and Recreation Summer Kids Activities catalog. Yeah. Everything else pretty much sucked. But it was super cheap, and my mom got the day to herself, so like I understand why she sent me. Like I would have sent me too. The second summer camp I went to, the first overnight camp, was called 4-H camp. I know the H's all stood for something. I don't remember now. I think one of them might have been horse, because there were a lot of horses there. But who cares? This camp was significantly more fun than park camp. But it wasn't until the third camp I attended that I realized, 4-H camp was kind of boring too. Camp Magruder was where it was at, man. It was bordered on one side by a lake and the other side by an ocean, so there were plenty of opportunities to die. Thankfully, none of us did, though. But lots of water activities, lots of like classic summer camp things. But I noticed, and I picked this up at 4-H camp too, that everyone there had been going there since like they were able to. They all like knew what was up. They knew like what time dinner was, how to get back from the beach, which I only got lost once, so that was fine. But I didn't really know anything about it. I was just watching all these people who had such strong ties to this camp, and I didn't have those. The fourth summer camp I went to was called Camp Collins. This one was more fun than 4-H camp, but less fun than Magruder, so like a solid second place. This camp, I think it was just too long. It was 2 weeks. That's too much time to spend out in the woods with a bunch of people you don't know. The most interesting part was a 2-day rafting trip in the middle, and the second day of that trip, the Deschutes River was on fire. So I've survived a wildfire, guys. That's a totally different story. Again, I kept noticing that all these people had been coming here for years. They all knew each other. There were 2 girls in particular that really struck me. They were from opposite parts of Oregon, and they never would have met if it weren't for Camp Collins. They were like best friends who only saw each other 1 week a year. And I was like, wow, wouldn't it be great to have a relationship like that? I think what I'm trying to say is that I noticed all these people having so much fun at summer camp, and I tried to do that too, but it's really difficult when you don't, put in all the time and the effort and the money, because these things are not cheap. You have to like be there from the beginning to really get the full experience. I just, kept watching all these kids having so much fun, coming back year after year with the same friends and the same staff members, having these incredible, magical relationships, all surrounded in this beautiful environment. And I thought, I wanted that too. In hindsight, I really wish that instead of just watching these relationships happen, I could have been a part of them as well. So thank you.
Perhaps for consolation, don't know if you're familiar with this gem from the 1970s. It's a little movie called Meatballs. If you watch it, Ellen, Bill Murray will tell you, say it with me, people, it just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. It does. Okay. I'm teasing you, Ellen. Okay. So, the final judge to let you know a little bit more about is Shelby Westcott. And now Shelby, are you still fluent in Japanese? Oh, no. Okay, she was at one point. Back in the day, back in the high school day. Oh, okay. And we do have students here who could test you on that. However, back in the day, she was fluent, and she was gifted a trip to Japan by her great aunt. And this was a trip that changed her life. Her life, not Ian's. That's a little joke there for Shelby. Hilarious. It's hilarious. Okay, so just a reminder, next Thursday we're going to do this all again. We are going to have the PPS Interscholastic Story Slam. It's called Truth Be Told. And it will be taking place same bat time at 7 p.m. We're going to try for a 7 p.m. start. And there will be student storytellers here from Lincoln, Madison, and Franklin, along with some of the Grant storytellers you've heard tonight. All right. The final storyteller of the evening, when asked the question, what's the best present you've ever been given, excitedly exclaimed, Stonehenge! And I had visions of Spinal Tap. And then they followed up by saying it was a birthday trip that coincided with the spring equinox. Yes, we can all appreciate the power of this trip. For our next storyteller, Marion Miller.
Okay, so this story has sort of been cycling in the back of my mind since I first heard of this, because the 11th year anniversary just passed. So yeah, I'll set the scene for you. Rocks, mesquite, wax bush, tumbleweeds, more rocks. Like the background of an old Roadrunner cartoon as seen through the passenger side window. With, the features repeating because of, budget constraints and artistic limitations in the animation department. This is the Great Basin in February of 2009 with my dad storytelling behind the wheel. Mythology, anthropology, geography, basically endless conversational off-ramps and cul-de-sacs available to me if I want to take them. If not, he'll just keep spinning. Like maybe, there are petroglyphs in those hills out there that no one alive has ever seen. Or maybe, we should stop in Elko tonight. That town has an interesting history. His eyes are red-rimmed in the rearview mirror. I've seen him crying. I know he's worried because I haven't yet, and it's been nearly a month since Mom died. Red makes gray irises so much brighter, and they look like a blue. What, I wonder, would crying do for this situation? Would it change anything? I can tell it would provide a sense of relief for the adults, for the teachers, for the counselors at the Childhood Grief Center, for the family members, to Mom's friends who have breakdowns in the veggie aisle at the sight of me. I've become a symbol to them. I'm an emblem. I'm also 7. I watched my mother wither away over 2 years. I changed sheets, brought her tea and toast when she could eat, won Scrabble games with 50-point words like chemotherapy and metastasis, watched them take the hospital bed out of her room. Hey, a Chevy Nova. They had trouble marketing that car because Nova means doesn't run in Spanish. Time isn't trustworthy, but maybe an hour goes by before he breaks the silence again. I heard from the dog balloon. I turn towards him. He studies the road. Yeah? What'd they say? Well, it was kind of hard to tell. The line was bad. They've got the corgis out trying to fix the antennas, but, well, it's kind of difficult because, well, no thumbs. You will allow as to having no thumbs would make running an airship no mean feat. I will allow. Where are they? 1,500 feet over Tucumcari, New Mexico. Trying to hold position so we can catch up with them. The dog balloon only ever checks in with Dad. They'll visit, but it's only when I'm asleep or at school or otherwise occupied. Tucumcari, you think? Yeah, he says. Our dog Sadie is a member, designated navigator, and good at it. She's, as graded on the curve against other Labradors, but yeah. Tucumcari, you think? Yeah, he says. I don't know why Tucumcari stuck in my mind, but yeah, it is. The dog balloon is sort of, accident prone, not unlike myself. And there's a history of, misadventure, like the Great Deflation of '07, when a pod of humpback whales needed to be employed to reinflate the canopy with sinking imminent. Or the feline fiasco, where the cats, mortal enemies and universally recognized puncture artists, snuck a spy on board disguised as a Bichon Frise with mange. Who, that Bichon Frise ended up being declared an honorary dog and added to the ship's roster. So, for the third time, I ask, Tucumcari, where's that? He says, to the east. Keep watching the sky and you might see them. I know I won't, but east is as good a direction as any. I also know that someday, when the dust has settled and blue has reverted back to gray, that I'll be the one storytelling. But for now, I look to the east. Thank you.
Thanks so much for sharing that, Marion. Okay, so the time has come for our math genius to work her final math magic. Yes, and determine tonight's points totals. But while we wait for those totals to come through, I thought I would share a story with my students. So,
Unlocking your backstory? Is that
it's a little bit of my backstory. Yes, it is. Okay, so every year, when we're about 6 to 8 weeks out from this event, I need to go out into the halls and rooms of Grant to find 6 to 8 willing students, and I'm always grateful that you're willing to do this. But I try to drum up business. And I hit all of the spots you would think of, the English classrooms and definitely the theater classrooms. And it was there a couple of weeks ago where I found myself standing in front of a room full of students, telling them what this event was all about, that this year's theme was hindsight, which I know, at first might seem like, I don't know, what kind of story can you tell about hindsight? I'm like, let me tell you a story. I'm going to give you an example of hindsight. And so I launched into the following tale. When I was about 7, I thought it would be so much fun to play an April Fool's joke on my parents. Every day, my sister and I took the bus home from school, and we lived far away from school, and it took about 30 minutes or so to get back to our house, and so this was plenty of time to convince. As you remember, I said I had an older sister. I said to my older sister, let's play a joke on Mom and Dad. So we schemed the entire ride home, and we got off the bus. And, in hindsight, I still think, didn't my sister know that this was a horrible thing to do? No, she went right along with it. So she runs in to our house. My mom and dad are there, and she screams, "Paige has been hit by a car!" And they come flying out of the house. I'm waiting behind a bush. And as they're screaming and trying to find where I could be in the road, I jump out and say, "April Fools!" They did not find that funny. I'm telling this story and everyone's laughing like y'all are, and I think to myself, I am killing it. I know how to drum up some business for this event. And I hit the punchline and I look around, and sitting in the top row is Maya, who's a senior. And she's laughing hysterically. And at this point, I'm starting to think, okay, I know I'm a good storyteller, but why is she still laughing? And she said, "Miss Battle, every year when you come into our theater class to drum up business for the Story Slam, you tell that same story about April Fools and why you hate it." And I started to think back oh yeah, 3 years ago when the theme was trouble, I told about the one time in my life when I had gotten in the worst trouble of my life. And then I thought, last year's theme was endings, and I talked about how my love for April Fool's Day jokes came to an end when I was 7 years old, and this horrible thing happened. And here we are, hindsight. And then I thought, in hindsight, next year, I am going to have to come up with some new material. There we go. Okay, I want to have all of our storytellers come up to the microphone, and let's give them a round of applause. I think we're going to have to rename this event Storytelling in Your Socks. I love it. Danny, you'll have to take your shoes off next time. Okay. All right, so looking over at Miss Sochwa. Oh, we have to take a picture, Eli, for the grant yearbook that everyone needs to purchase. So now is the time to... Stand back here. You can come on up if you need to. I'm going to stand next to Jordan. Oh, now we're getting fancy. Okay.
Advanced.
Advanced PE.
Not question the elevated one.
Okay, so we are so delighted. Oh yes, here comes, y'all. If you've never heard this story, I'll tell the abbreviated version. So it's a long story, but I'm going to tell the abbreviated one. So
I'm still walking away.
no, I have a nickname from my childhood because my initials are PB, and so my nickname was Peanut Butter. No, this is Jelly. This is Jennifer. I know, we are PB and J. So here's Jelly to, I know, and it's so cute. Okay. So I'm making sure I have that right. Okay. So we would like to thank these 4 storytellers for sharing their tales tonight. Anna, Jordan, Kaysen, and Marion, thank you so much. And our runner-up for the 5th annual Story Slam is Ellen Lovery. And our winner is Danny Fisher. So Ellen and Danny are going to share those same stories next week when we welcome in Madison, Lincoln, and Franklin storytellers sharing some more tales about hindsight. So thank you all so much for being here tonight. Thank you to the judges, Ben and Stephanie and Pardis. Thank you. All right.
5.